With Dragon's Dogma 2 being just around the corner and looking to be Game of the Year material, I wanted to talk about the original Dragon's Dogma, what it does right and what sets it apart from other action RPGs, but also why it still deserves your attention and why you should totally play it despite being such an old game. With that being said, hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero, and let's talk about this masterpiece of a game that went under the radar for so many years. Dragon's Dogma takes place in a fantasy setting, inhabited by largely what you would expect to see from the medieval times. We're talking about villagers, knights and kings, but of course, this being a JRPG, you also have the fantasy aspect to it, with there being lots of fantastical creatures going from goblins all the way to griffins and dragons. However, what sets Dragon's Dogma apart from its competition is its more grounded and gritty lore, with some dark aspects to it, and you as a player have the choice to ignore these themes or try to delve and dig a little bit deeper. That being said, it is very clear from the start that the lands that you will be traversing through are not going to be friendly and cozy towards you. In fact, you'll be taking on a dangerous journey that starts off with you, the main character, actually dying. You see, in Dragon's Dogma, there is a dragon that once every few years will select a certain person and will take and consume their heart. That person now becoming the Arisen, an adventurer that is destined to face off against the dragon to break the cycle and retrieve their heart. And you, the player being the Arisen, will have the ability to employ pawns, these special NPCs that will accompany you on your journey, whose only real purpose is to serve and aid the Arisen. As you can tell from these small tidbits, the game has a very intricate lore, but what truly sells Dragon's Dogma to me and so many others is the feeling of adventure and the action combat. You see, in Dragon's Dogma, whenever you set off on a journey to go to a forlorn location to complete a quest, maybe you want to explore some ruins, take out a griffin, or find a hidden temple, not only will the journey there take some time, as there is very little fast travel in Dragon's Dogma, but let's put a pin on that, the game will actually try to make you aware of the various different obstacles that you will have to face on your way there. For example, as you walk towards your destination, you will come across some NPCs and some merchants, or even your own pawns will advise you to maybe not stay off the road. In other games, you're likely just going to ignore this advice, but in Dragon's Dogma, it's actually valuable advice since you'll find yourself getting jumped by a group of enemies, be it bandits, goblins, or even attacked by a dragon, so you are never truly safe. And this statement becomes even more true whenever nighttime sets in, as you will want to be accompanied by a lantern at all times, because otherwise you won't be able to see a thing in nighttime. And on top of that, as you can expect from a fantasy RPG like this, during nighttime a lot more monsters will show up, skeletons and zombies will rise up from the ground, and in general they'll become a lot more active and threatening. And taking care of your lantern actually takes a little bit of work, as your lanterns actually deplete over time, and so you need to take these oil flasks with you to be able to keep the lantern lit up. And if you happen to fall into a pond or a lake, for example, if you somehow end up getting wet, of course your lantern is going to no longer be lit up, and so you need to put it away and take out a new one. And it's some of this inconvenience and sense of discomfort of being this one singular human in this entire world really helps make the world of Dragon's Dogma feel a lot more grounded. You don't feel like the big main character that can do anything. You actually need to respect the world you're living in and deal with the consequences of your actions and fight for your own survival. And as I said before, initially the game doesn't have a fast travel system. You can do so by using the fairy stones, which are some crystals that you can place on the ground, and then you're able to fast travel between the locations that have those stones there. However, throughout your playthrough, you'll notice that you won't have many of these fairy stones to place on the ground, so you do need to be careful to use them in the right spots to make good use of them. That being said, in the Dark Arisen, the version of the game that most of you will probably have, the game does give you an eternal fairy stone which lets you use fast travel between these locations as many times as you want. It doesn't actually consume the item, so you don't need to worry about that as much. The game's director has even gone on to say that the only way travel is boring is because the game itself is boring. Quote, "All you have to do is make travel fun." We've put a lot of work into designing a game where you can stumble across someone and something will happen. So while it's fine if it does have fast travel, we decided to design the map in a way that the journey itself could be enjoyed. In the same kind of way in real life that you may deliberately choose to go by bike or on foot when traveling instead of taking faster options, end quote. This is regarding the notion that Dragon's Dogma 2's fast travel is going to be very restricted, so it is clear that the key philosophy for Dragon's Dogma and its sequel is to make the game's world, travel, and underlying systems more interesting and compelling by implementing all of these limitations and smaller inconveniences. It is in no way meant to detract from a fun and enjoyable gameplay experience, but rather have the player think for themselves and come up with solutions for the different problems the game asks you to solve. Having said all of that, it's not like the game doesn't let you be a badass and have these cool, powerful moments. In fact, the game's combat actually incentivizes that a lot, with the 9 different vocations that you have available, each letting you play this cool power fantasy of being either a powerful warrior wielding these huge greatswords, a magic archer that can unleash a barrage of magical bullets that will ricochet off the walls and deal tons of damage, or a sorcerer that can cast some of the most incredible magic spells that you have ever seen in the video game by summoning a huge tornado that can cover the entire screen and creating massive meteors and have them land on top of your enemies. Thankfully, you won't be alone in your journey. As mentioned before, you are able to employ pawns to accompany you on your travels. And the pawn system is a really cool and unique feature as it lets players upload their main pawn to the game's server, thus making it available for other players to recruit. But in return, players can recruit pawns created by others. Additionally, each pawn has their own inclinations and unique behavior, so if you order your pawn to be an aggressive fighter that will rush the enemies, that is, on top of a pawn that you recruit telling you how to complete the quest you're doing, or how to take down a certain enemy if they have already done so in their original world. And with Dragon's Dogma 2 now having official pawns made by certain content creators, I am delighted to say that I will be taking Rurikan with me on every journey and maybe throw him off a cliff or two if he doesn't perform. All of this to say that it's a robust system that I think is underappreciated, despite how much it adds to the single player experience, and it certainly was ahead of its time. There is a lot of variety and expression that you can have with each of the different vocations in Dragon's Dogma, and despite some of them being called the starter vocations and some others being called the advanced vocations, all 9 of them are actually quite viable and powerful. And with you being able to grapple onto enemies to specifically target certain parts, like attacking a Cyclops' eye to make them fall to their knees to deal as much damage as possible, or hitting a dragon's chest, cutting off one of the Hydra's heads, or cutting off the tail of a Chimera, there is so much that you can do in the game's combat, with the only thing that may take some time to get used to being the lack of a proper lock-on and not having the ability to roll, since by now a lot of players are used to having a dodge roll in their action games like Dark Souls and Monster Hunter. So you do need to pay attention to whatever it is that the monster is doing, learn their attack patterns, know when to go in and when to move out of the way. Again, it goes back to respecting the beasts that you're fighting against, because you're stepping into a dangerous world. A few more things that I believe help make Dragon's Dogma feel like a new game is that the narrative lends itself very well to making multiple playthroughs. I won't delve deep because of spoilers, because I believe the game's ending is very good and should be experienced by everyone, but I also want to touch on the DLC, the Bitter Black Isles, which are these massive ruins that you can explore that feel very oppressive with some crazy levels of challenges, and it is a place where you can truly experiment with your skills, try out different vocations and just decimate these bosses, or at least die trying. Having just recently beaten the final boss of the Bitter Black Isles, it really felt refreshing how fun of an experience it was, while at the same time being challenging and demanding my full attention. But of course, if you know what you're doing, you can totally break the game with some overpowered stuff, which is also part of the fun. And of course, we can expect to see just that in Dragon's Dogma 2. We've already seen some crazy stuff with the new vocations, with Trickster and Mystic Spearhand looking absolutely crazy, and having Warfarer, a vocation that is dedicated to using the skills of all other vocations. We as a community are going to be coming up with some crazy combinations, and I cannot wait to see that. Dragon's Dogma 2 is just around the corner and there's still so many people that have yet to try the first game, which is why I'm making this video. So if you have the chance and the time, do try it out because I really do believe that it is a phenomenal game. And if you are looking forward to Dragon's Dogma 2, let me know which vocation you will be playing first, and expect to see a lot of videos from me, as I will be making guides for all of the different vocations, and hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on the game a little bit before it releases so I can start making some content for you guys. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, my name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting!